Here's a statistic floating around: 3.1%. A 3.1% in annual wage rises just from the past year. But some economists think that this statistic is, quote, worthless. Economists like Jack Rasmus, who joins us now. He's an economist and the author of several books, the latest of which is The Scourge of Neoliberalism, U.S. Economic Policy from Reagan to Trump. Dr. Rasmus, let's begin by unpacking the claim from the Trump administration, a claim which we've seen repeated by the corporate press, that wages are finally rising in the U.S. Now, you've written in the past about how this doesn't actually reflect a change in purchasing power. So let's unpack that aspect first. This 3.1 statistic is not adjusted for inflation. When is the last time U.S. workers saw an actual increase in their real wages?
Yes, well, a recent survey just came out this past week from a very respected company called Bankrate. Does wage and other HR data for tens of thousands of companies. And they indicated that 51% of the total labor force got no raise whatsoever last year. That's over 80 million people got no raise whatsoever. The year before, it was 62%, got no raise whatsoever. Yet we have this 3.1% figure that keeps bouncing around. Well, the devil's in the details. You know, if you look behind the 3.1, as you already indicated, that's not adjusted for inflation. But more important for that, it's an average. It's an average for the total labor force of 160 million people. So that, those at the top might be getting a lot more than 3.1%, and those at the middle and below getting nothing. And I think that's the case. We've got the number as an average is skewed to the very high level. So people at the top, tech engineers and healthcare people and supervisors and so forth are probably getting much more than 3.1%, but that's only 10% of the total labor force. And more.
From Studio 4 in the world headquarters of RT America in our nation's capital, this is the News with Rick Sanchez.
And good evening, everybody. I'm John Huddy, filling in for Rick Sanchez, who's off for the holidays. We hope he's enjoying it. We begin tonight by reviewing the many protests that raged around the world this year, and we've talked about many of them right here on this show, often when the mainstream media has all but tuned out. And we found that there have been parallels between these protests and often several corresponding factors driving the demonstrations, among them a feeling of exclusion among youth, the young generation, concern about the future, and anger about a growing economic disparity gap in many of the cities and countries where protesters and demonstrators have hit the streets. It's this.
All right, Shalom. First off, I want to start off by saying all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakar Kadash, is all praises to the world calls God and Jesus Christ, the true names in the Hebrew is Yahweh for the Heavenly Father and Yahweh Shai for his beloved Son. I also want to say double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone and peace and mercy to Hopeful Lake, preaching his word in truth and sincerity. This is the brother Tazabah in the Great Millstone, Arizona. Can't Lord Whittle on another video to edify. What you just saw was two videos going into the economic disparity and how it's affecting people throughout the world. They're sitting there advertising a 3.1% increase in wages annually. That's yearly. But according to this man right here, he even said that really the brass tacks is that 57% of people reported not receiving any wages at all, any increase in any income at all. He also said that 3.1% is an average for 160 million people or something like that. I think that's what he said. So you're averaging out that number between all those people, and that's what it totals down to. But you have the brass tacks employee, which is the lower level employees, your mail rooms, your barely just regular supervisor positions, not getting anything. But you got the elite getting paid. And this video just told you that the parallel between every country that's having these seditions among men in their country, like Hong Kong and all the other one, France with the yellow vests, all that all boils down to three factors. And one of the biggest factors that was economic disparity between the poor and the rich. And it's only growing because that's Esau, Edom's motive. And I'm going to go back to these videos and play a little more, but this is the first precept. This is James 5:1. It says, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. What are the riches, man? It's corrupt how they get them, man. They get it through fractional reserve banking. They get it through compounding interest. They get it through scheming out their employees. You know, this is how Esau Edom gets down. You know, where you'll have a CEO and a CFO getting paid, 3-4 million a year, and they're only paying their employees at the bottom level that actually make the money for the company a smooth 2 G's a month after taxes, you know, and they got to work 40 hours plus, but you have the higher ups just sitting there working 3-4 hours out of the day, and all they're doing is reading some documents. You know, this is how Esau Edom gets down, man. This is verse 3. It says, your gold and silver is cankered, the rest of them shall be witness against you. The gold and silver is cankered, and the rest of them. Let me see if I can get that word for rest right there. Eos is the word right there, and that's G244:7. It says poison of asp, and under their lips spoken of men given to reveling and calumniating, and thereby injuring others. And how does he injure others? Do his economic means, man. You tax people out the ass. You rise the cost of living. You raise the cost of food. You you put laws in place. You make people have to get health care. Then you make the health care unaffordable. All these things are how Esau gets his money, man, and it's only by injurious practice. That's why the scriptures tell you. This is Sirach 10, Ecclesiasticus and Apocrypha. And 8 says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches gotten by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. And that's why he's going down right now, is because how he's played with the people in their funds, put them in such an economic bind that they can never get out of. This is how Esau Edom's gotten down. It says, so back in James 5:3, it says, your gold and silver is cankered, and the rest of them shall be witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped up treasures together for the last days. Behold, come on now. It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. And that's what it's talking about, man. In every nation, all these nations, bro, the laborers are the brass tacks employee, the ones that made the major companies. They're getting a fraction of anything that comes out of that place, but they're putting in all the work for it. So it says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of Yahweh of Sabaoth. Slakia. So the cries of the ones that have labored, who Esau's kept back their wages by fraud, are now it's being heard before the Lord. Why do you think it's something that's going on like the yellow vest protest? How in the hell do you think something like that could stay so strong for a full year plus? You see? So this is the Lord's down with this, man. Now we're gonna play a little more of these. Lord willing and satisfying.
More important than that, that only refers to people who have full-time jobs. There are 60 million people at least, according to a number of independent surveys, who have part-time temp, gig, contract work now in the economy today. And they're not included in that 8.1%. So if you look at the details behind the 3.1%, it's not really 3.1% or even close to that for the vast majority of people out there who are working, and they know it.
Right, that 3.1%, like you just indicated, is really just for full-time workers. However, we have the Labor Department estimating that only 5% of workers have multiple jobs, but you, I think, disagree. Can you explain why?
Well, it's not just me disagreeing. The Gallup survey and other surveys, studies. Just yesterday in the New York Times, another study showed that there's really like 28% of the workforce have multiple jobs, second and third jobs. We're talking about 45 million people, not the 8 million people that the Labor Department estimates, and that's because the Labor Department only looks at people who have their primary job is part-time, and then the secondary, even third jobs, they work less at. But what you got today is tens of millions of people who are cobbling together second and third jobs to try to make ends meet. The Labor Department does not pick up most of those folks, and it's not my numbers, it's the Gallup survey and other surveys that really are saying this now.
Right, and you could say this kind of reflects an overall trend where more and more people are going to these temporary jobs, these gig economy jobs, while wages stay stagnant. Now, in terms of stagnant wages, which you could say we've been experiencing since at least the 70s, during that same time, U.S. workers have actually been more productive. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Other sources like the Economic Policy Institute estimate that business has increased its productivity 70% since 1979, in other words, 40 years ago. But wage increase.
You see that? It said they increased their productivity 70% in the last 40 years. Now, what else he has to say?
It's only been 12% since that time. So
you increased your productivity. You've increased your income by 70%, but you've only increased the wages for employees that have to live out here only a mere 12%. That's just averaged out, just like you said before. Let me get this preset real quick. This is Isaiah 14. And 4. Yeah, this is Isaiah 14:4. It says, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased. Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. And one of the ways he did that was through economic means, man. He never gave you a chance to breathe. He always switched up the game. He always demanded more, and he always gave less. This is Esau Edom, greedy of gain. The scriptures tell you these are they that prosper in the world, the wicked. He that ruleth the nations in anger and persecute and it is persecuted and none hindered. And that's what you're seeing with these uproars of the people in all these places, man. You know? Let me play a little more of this.
Business is absorbing all the profits from higher productivity and not really sharing that. That 12% is like 0.3% per year on average wage increase. That's a stagnation. The wages haven't really increased for tens of millions of people for 4 decades.
Let me see. Let me look up something. Let's do 30 years because it popped up. I want to see if I can find it. Comparing the cost of living between 1975 and 2015. Let's see what this says. Cost of living in the United States, 1975 versus 2015. A new house cost $48,000 in 1975. The true cost, according to 1975 to 2015, would be $209,000. 270. That same house today would be cost $270,000, but plus more, because this is an extra 5 years on top of that. Median income in 1975, base income was $12,686. It increased to $55,000. Increase to 2015 to $51,759. New car was $3,800. Now it's $31,000. Minimum wage is $2.10. Minimum wage now is $8.25. Public college was $1,819. Now it's $18,000. Private college was $3,776. Now it's 42 G's. You see? Now you're getting that, but understand over the last, 30 years? I think that's 30 years, 30 plus years. Things have gotten more expensive and your wages have barely gone up to match it. And that's this is like good fig jobs. This is no BS jobs, This is not no BS jobs, man. Car went up $11,000 from 2000 to 2014. The cost of living just skyrocketed, and he just broke down how productivity went up 70%, but your personal wage only went up 12%. And that's probably really generous on the good side. And Jake has been living underneath the system for so long.
Now. And that's why they're adding a second and third, low paid, but second and third jobs, and using more credit. Households $14 trillion in debt now with credit cards and auto loans and so forth. So they're working along with extra credit and working part-time second and third jobs and putting everyone in the family to work. But what happens when we have the next recession? Half of the population, half of the households in this country have no savings whatsoever. Social Security provides only, $1,200 a month? The pensions are collapsing. The private pensions are collapsing in this country. What are they going to do when we have the next downturn, which is coming either next year or soon thereafter, if they have no savings and they have no jobs to pay that $14 trillion of debt? We're going to have a very serious situation because the wages haven't been really increasing for most of these folks. They have no savings, and the pension and retirement system is broken.
It really makes you wonder.
And that takes us to this one.
Same kind of fuel that gave momentum to protests like Occupy Wall Street and the Arab Spring. I was there at Zuccotti Park when Occupy Wall Street began, and I watched it not only grow bigger and bigger there in Manhattan, but also spread across the country and across the world. And likewise, today, there's a younger generation, what we call millennials, speaking out, raging against the machine of often oppressive and corrupt governments and the wealthy elite, the 1% that gets richer while the rest continue to struggle. From Paris to Hong Kong, from Lebanon to Chile, the anger is the same. In many of these stories, it started with a smaller swell of movement growing into a large wave of protest for better living standards, quality of life, and higher wages, among many other demands. And one of the key ingredients in this recipe for resistance, the dismay and frustration that the rich keep getting richer.
You see? They're pissed. People are pissed. This is Isaiah. I don't need that no more. I'm going to drop that. This is Leviticus 19 and 13. It says, "Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with you all night until the morning. Thou shalt not," you see? And this is what Esau does, man. This is why they have 2-week pay periods, because they're sitting there using that money that you're making them to loan out, pay loans, pay debts, invest, and you're getting no money on that investment. The 401k system, those things are going in the tanker. Stop, boy. The dog messing with me. That money is going in the tanker. You got these pension plans that are going in the tanker, and Esau is just robbing people of their wages, man. This is why the people are getting irritated. This is why they're pissed off. This is this is Jeremiah 22 and 13. It says, "Woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness, and his chambers by wrong, that useth his neighbor's service without wages, and giveth him not for his work." Is that not what he's doing? You telling me you're somebody's making productivity is going up 70%, but you only give somebody a 12% increase over the last 40 years of pay? That's it? But you reaped 70%. And Jake, they'll be in these jobs for a long time. And just because he's getting ready to retire, they'll sit here and just let your ass go so they don't have to pay you out. That's how they do it. It says, "That said, I will build me a wide house and in large chambers, and cut him out windows, and it is sealed with cedar, and painted with vermilion." I believe that's vermilion is I think it's a red. Yep. And I believe that was a costly color to come by, just because the source, just like purple, is a kingly color, because you have to get it from a certain type of oyster shell, and they would get a dye that comes out of it, and nobody was able to really dive that deep. So for you to have something purple, it came at a steep price. It says back in Jeremiah 22 and 15, shall thou reign because thou closest thyself in cedar? Did not thy father eat and drink and do judgment and justice, and then it was well with him? And this is talking about the righteous. This is talking about Jake. This is what our fathers did, not Esau, Edom. He never judged righteously or kept justice. I'm gonna jump down to 17. It says, but thine eyes and thine heart are not, but for thy covetousness, and for to shed innocent blood, and for oppression, and for violence to do it. And this is how Esau gets down, man. The way you do this is off. And this stuff is killing the people, man. You setting up laws and stuff like this. This kills the people. This is Sirach. Salakia. What the fuck is? This is Sirach 34 and 21. It says, the bread of the needy is their life, and he that defrauded him thereof is a man of blood. He that taketh away his neighbor's living slayeth him, and he that defraudeth the labor of his hire is a blood shedder. And this is Esau Edom. And this is why all these people in all these other countries are getting buck wild right now, man. China, Iran, Chile, Venezuela, all these places, man, they're pissed. They're pissed. And it's only going to get worse. Because when that economic collapse comes, man, get that. Second Ezra is 15 and Second Ezra 15 and 14. It says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and the destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there should be sedition among men, and invading one another. And there, it says, they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And that's what's going to happen, man. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. And this was going to come. That's why it says what it says in the book of Sirach. Sirach 34 and 21 again. It says, the bread of the needy is their life. He that defraudeth him thereof is a man of blood. He that take away his neighbor's living, slayeth him, and he that defraudeth the labor of his hire is a blood shedder. You see? And that's how Esau gets down, man. It's Malachi 3 and 5. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages. Is that not what's happening? Isn't that what's happening all around the world? You heathens sit here and make all this money You own every goddamn thing. You raise the cost of living and you don't give us enough money to live. This is slave tactics, man. This is legit slave tactics. Exactly what this dude Thomas Thistlewood. When you read the memoirs of this devil, man, one of his things that he did to the so-called Jamaicans, which are the tribe of Benjamin on the islands of Jamaica, was he would in the sugar cane fields, he would sit there and barely feed them just enough for them to be able to work. Barely give them sleep just enough for them to be able to work. Barely even give them any rest for them to just enough be able to work. And that's exactly what Esau Edom's doing on a grand scale in the world today. So back in Malachi 3 and 5, again, it says, "And I will come near to you to judgment. I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers and against the adulterers, and against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, said Yahweh of hosts. For I am Yahweh, I change not, therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed." And this is how the Lord's going to get down, bro. Throughout the world, you're only going to see this stuff wiling up. You're only going to see more sedition. This coming year, man, in 2020, I expect some global to intensify even more, man. Hey, but Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm going to cut it off there. I want to say, call Allah, Yah, Bashim, Al Shai, Bashim, Rakakadash, double honors to others and apostles, great millstone, and peace, mercy, helpful elect, Shalom.